For demonstration purposes, we will use a second set and lock on the left forearm, indicated by the red face. Again, you will notice that the back of each hand is away from the back of the set and lock. Now, arm your wrist in front of you from top to bottom and not from side to side. Notice what happens. The back of the right hand comes in contact with the back of the set and lock on the right forearm. This is visible proof that the angle of the right wrist increases at the time of setting and thus during the swing. At the opposite, you will note that the space between the left hand and the back of the set and lock on the left forearm has remained the same. It has not changed. Throughout the entire swing, the left wrist angle must absolutely remain constant, otherwise you will manipulate the face of the club. If the angle decreases, it will close the face of the club. If it increases, it will open the face of the club. In both cases, you will have to compensate on the downswing or end up with a slice or a draw. The easiest way to keep the left wrist angle steady is to control the back of your right wrist. Indeed, if you focus your attention on your right wrist and thanks to the help of the set and lock, you will learn to control the left wrist angle. And while we're talking about setting the wrist, let's take a few minutes to analyze the position of the hands and of the club at 9 o'clock during the backswing. This position is of great importance, for it dictates the rest of the club's path and plane. As you can see, at 9 o'clock, the club is in line with the tip of your toes, and the face of the club is perpendicular to the ground. In other words, the head of the club points towards the sky. If we turn the angle of the camera, you will see that the back of the right hand is not yet totally against the back of the set and lock. If we come back to the address position, you will note that the setting of the wrist is almost non-existent at this moment of the swing. The setting of the wrist must occur gradually. Do not rush this movement, otherwise you risk to pick up your club, that is, to raise the club with your hands. Instead of using the small muscles in the hands, you should use the big muscles in your shoulders. Using the hands will usually reduce the arc of the swing and thus create a loss of distance. Be patient with your wrist and hands, since the remainder of the setting will follow during the backswing and the downswing. Now, let's go back to the main use of the set and lock on the right wrist for the right-hand golfer. Once again, take your grip and your address position. Raise your club to 9 o'clock. Note the position of the back of your right hand relative to the back of the set and lock. Continue the swing. Turn the right shoulder. You should feel that the back of the right hand is now in contact with the back of the set and lock. The angle of the right wrist is now entirely set. Your wrists are completely set. The right elbow points towards the ground and pushes slightly towards the left elbow. The elbows have remained equidistant during the entire backswing. Now, let's start the downswing. The first thing to do is to transfer the weight of the body from the inside of the left foot to the outside of the left foot, while keeping the right knee steady. This simple movement will force the knees to come apart and will result in leg separation. You should have the sensation of sitting down. All good players share this sensation. The feeling of sitting down at the start of the downswing will ensure a proper position. The simple fact of transferring the weight of the left foot will also cause a downward movement of the hands and the club, while the upper body remains quiet. It is a consequence of the weight transfer, starting with the left foot. During this action, the back of the right hand has remained in contact with the back of the set and lock. If this is the case, you have just eliminated the most common fault of a large number of golfers, namely starting the downswing from the hands in an attempt at hitting the ball from the top of the swing. As we learned previously, launching the head of the club towards the ball only generates arm speed and body speed, but no distance. In order to preserve the energy created during the backswing, you must delay, for as long as possible, the impact of the club on the ball, and keep the back of the right hand in contact with the back of the set and lock when changing direction of the swing. Thanks to the set and lock, you will have an immediate feedback. Once more, our goal is to get you to feel these sensations, to allow you to repeat them, and consequently to progress rapidly. Now, let's analyze the club's position at 9 o'clock during the downswing. Same as during the backswing, at 9 o'clock, the club is in line with the tip of the toes, and the head of the club is perpendicular to the ground, pointing towards the sky. A perfect position to attack the ball. We are entering the red zone, the impact zone. The back of the right hand is in contact with the back of the set and lock. All that remains is to go through the ball with the shoulders. Do not try to hit the ball with your hands. The back of the right wrist stays locked. The back of the right hand stays in contact with the back of the set and lock. Do not attempt to unset your wrist. This action will come naturally. You must feel the rotation of the left forearm. The radius and the ulna fall into place in order to release the left elbow. The release of the left elbow is one of the critical factors to increase the speed of the club. The left hip clears out of the way in order to let the arms, hands and club go through. The faster you move the left hip, the greater the speed you can impart to the club. It's like throwing something, and all throwing activity calls upon the left hip for a right-handed person. It is a pulling force, and remember that a pulling force is much stronger than a pushing force. Getting back to 9 o'clock in the downswing, the back of the right wrist is locked, the back of the right hand is against the back of the set and lock. Now for the moment of impact. The back of the hand is against the back of the set and lock. The fingers of the right hand never pass before the heel pad of the hand. You have the impression of hitting the ball with the heel pad of your right hand. Do not try to move your hand from the back of the set and lock. Do not attempt to cover the left hand with your right hand. Stay in contact with the set and lock. Once again, it's a question of feeling. Thanks to the set and lock, you will have an immediate and clear feedback on the movement of your wrist. As you noticed in Phil's demonstration of the method, the longer you keep your right wrist locked, the longer and straighter your ball will be, and you will also be able to control the effect you wish to give to your ball. Practice without a club. Learn this feeling of hitting with the heel pad of your right hand. Open your fingers and keep the back of the right hand in contact with the set and lock. Notice that the fingers of the right hand never overtake the heel pad of the hand. Now, holding your club, try to keep this feeling as long as possible in the red zone. After the impact, as a result of the weight of the club and the centrifugal force, it is evident that the back of the right hand has a tendency to move slightly away from the set and lock, but never at the moment of impact. This feeling of separation occurs almost at the time when the hands are about level with the left hip. Again, thanks to the set and lock, you have an immediate feedback on the movement of your wrist. You feel instantly what your wrists are doing.